Sep says I'm a civil servant and I only get £11 an hour. I work from home, but if I have to go to the office, it's a 1.5 hour drive, so that's a 3 hour round trip. That costs me £30. Boris and Mog are clueless. They think all civil servants are rich. It's an interesting perspective.
It is interesting. And Gracie says, again, this is a good one, and we were talking earlier on, why do bog-offs and supermarkets, how does it all operate? Because Gracie says, would it not be better to offer an item at half price rather than buy one, get one free? That way it's cheaper for the consumer, there's less likelihood of throwing it away, throwing away the other half of your bog-off because you haven't used it all. I mean, that would be a great
There
point.
has to be a reason, doesn't there?
Something
They're
in
trying
it.
to lure us into the supermarket in the first place. Something, there has to be a strategy to it, doesn't there? And just finally, to add a note of controversy, Helen says, we're from Bristol and love our city and the West Country. However, we mostly choose to travel north for trips and holidays. The people up north are friendlier and warmer. Yorkshire and Northumberland are your favourite places in the world. See, that's what I was asking. My mum used to say, the further north you go, the nicer the men get.
Yep.
Well, that doesn't include you, Pete.
No, but the men get nicer.
We'll be joining Pete in a moment to have a look through the papers.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. You see, I think people are warmer in the north, but then I'm a northerner, so I'm biased.
I don't know, but I'm willing to travel north and find out.
Yes.
Shall we take a look at today's front pages first? The Daily Mail has an exclusive interview with the Prime Minister, who's attacked the civil services work-from-home culture.
The Guardian covers the cost of living crisis as food prices rise again.
The Mirror covers the Wagatha Christie case between Rebecca Vardy and Colleen Rooney. Yesterday, Colleen took the stand to give evidence.
The Sun has Prince William's visit to award fearless anti-cancer campaigner Deborah James with her damehood. Okay, let's go through those papers with, as you saw, broadcaster Pete Price and former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall. Good to see you both this morning. We are kicking off with, in fact, I'll tell you what, we'll start with the Daily Mail, Claire, should we? And Nazanin meeting the Prime Minister and having some pretty strong words with him.
Yeah, and I suppose you can imagine how angry, disappointed, stressed Nazanin is. I mean, that was quite a sentence that she had. And quite honestly, it was the Prime Minister, when he was then Foreign Secretary, his comments that made her sentence last for longer.
He called her a journalist, didn't he?
He did. He said she was out there training journalists, and she wasn't, and she made that point to his civil servants at the time that, no, please don't say that because I'm not doing it. And it still went ahead. And I think we need to bring this to a close, and I'm not sure that she will get the closure unless there is an apology. And I'm not normally one that demands apologies of people, but I think in this instant, it would go a long way to repairing something that's happened to this poor woman.
Yeah.
6 years being locked up away from her lovely daughter and her husband is appalling. And, you know, I feel so sorry for them. There isn't anything that's going to make any of it better. And I think we can all see that. But I think an apology will cost nothing.
Well, if you're the Foreign Secretary, you should be making things better as much as you can, not worse.
An
Yeah,
apology,
And it does appear that he made it worse.
and as you say, apology costs nothing.
Yeah.
Makes you a bigger person.
Absolutely, and I just think that this is a time to put politics to one side and just be a real person, a real human being, and say that you're sorry and mean it. Not a politician's sorry, a proper one. And I think she deserves that. I really do. And I think
The trouble is, it would become a political football then, wouldn't it? Because if he properly apologised to her, you could see the Labour Party just leaping on that and saying yet another thing he's apologised for. You know, it would become a tit for tat again.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's one of these issues that the majority of the public will just say, right, stop playing politics with it. So yes, the opposition would come back and say, well, it's just another thing that the Prime Minister has got wrong. However, I think the general population would say, that's just stupid, let them get on with it.
We couldn't imagine what she's gone through. We couldn't imagine in a million years what she's gone through.
She'll always be scarred by it, won't she?
Yeah, always.
It would be a good thing if he did that, and it would, I think, clear a lot of stuff up.
Pete, tell us about dentists.
I will, before I do. Little wedding present from Liverpool. From Liverpool to you two. So you can open it now. It's safe, I promise you.
So if you've got to be careful.
Sure, you can show it on telly.
Yeah.
The People's Republic of Merseyside. Scout passports. Where's camera 2? I don't know which one camera 2 is. Oh, there it is. It's over there. There you go.
That's from Liverpool.
Scouse
Wishing you
passport.
all the happiness in the world.
Thank you very much indeed.
Because we all love GB News up there.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Oh, I love that. That's really nice. Thank you. Thank you very much
That is
indeed.
absolutely perfect.
So, dentists. 9 in 10 dentists refuse to take on new NHS patients. It is an absolute minefield what's going on. I go private, they are all my own teeth at my own age, and I've spent a lot of money on dentistry because I saw my mum suffer with the NHS, the way she was treated with dentists, and it was awful. More than half of council areas in England, homes of 9.4 million people, have no dentist at all. My dentist has told me 60% of the population don't even go and try and find a dentist, and then kids are not being looked after who need a checkup. And the sweets they're eating is ridiculous. So many children are having their teeth out. The British Dental Association say it's a wake-up call for the government. 3,000 dentists have already left the NHS because they're going private because they're treated better, but you can't. Even my private dentist, I can't get an appointment for 4 weeks. It is a minefield, and teeth are so important, and especially in children.
Especially with children, and if you learn how to look after your teeth at a young age, then you're set for life pretty much.
Absolutely.
But you still need to keep on top of them. I mean, I find it really concerning, actually.
It is, and a friend of mine, her son requires some braces, and she has been working for the last 18 months to try and get an appointment with a dentist, with an NHS dentist, who will give the go-ahead for him to have them. You know, he is 13 going on 14. He really needs to get this done now before it is too late and before it becomes very painful and harder to fix. So I think that we need more dentists, we need to invest more in it.
And we need to organise it better. I mean, in my village, there's a really good dental surgery, but it's private. But they want to be able to take NHS patients, and they're not being allowed to,
and that's
because of the way the NHS is set up.
Absolutely, and it's the same in my village as well. They had their allocation of NHS patients, which they filled, but the demand is still outstripping that, but they cannot physically take any more on. And that's got to be wrong, really.
And through the pandemic, there was also mega problems because they were closed for a while. Then they dressed them up like spacemen. I mean, the outfits they wore, and then you had to leave the room empty for 5 hours. So there was another room where they could do work where there was no drilling. So the backlog is absolutely crazy.
And the NHS was set up not only to look after our health, but also our dental health.
Yep.
Yes.
And yet somehow we've let that
disappeared.
Yeah.
It's a very frightening situation.
But I suppose the bottom line is, would we all be prepared to pay more tax in order to get dentistry back on an even keel with the NHS in this country?
Well, I mean, that's always going to be the issue, but I think people will look at the national insurance increase and say, well, what is it paying for?
Well, it's been swallowed up by inflation, hasn't it?
Absolutely, and that's the difficulty, that it doesn't get ring-fenced into health service or dental care or anything like that. It just gets pulled into general taxation.
Well, maybe we should put it all into looking after our follicles, for us gentlemen in particular, Claire. The Guardian says if we can't refer to anyone's baldness now.
My first idea on this was to find it quite funny. But I can understand that gentlemen, and this is to do with the gentleman, so that's why I'll make it that specific, is that he felt very offended. He obviously had a sensitivity around the losing of his hair. However, I don't think that we need to take this to an employment tribunal.
And why is it sexual harassment?
Well, I mean, this is what the lawyers have argued. Because more men are likely to be bald than women, so therefore
it's gender harassment, isn't it?
Absolutely, and they're trying to make out that it comes under the protected characteristic of sex, and it's like, well, no, women can be bald.
Yes.
Women can suffer, with alopecia and things like that. So I don't believe that this is sexism at all. I don't believe it should be looked at through a tribunal, and I don't think he deserves compensation.
Is he getting compensation?
That comment alone.
No, I mean,
the compensation will be determined at a later date because he's looking at sort of wrongful dismissal and other things as well as this sort of sexual harassment aspect.
Be interested to see how Will Smith would have coped with it.
Oh, don't.
Is it the same sort of harassment to call somebody fatty?
Well, I mean, I would say that yes, it would, and I think that is probably more offensive. But
I don't have to. A man who's gone bald. A lot of men do feel very, very, very upset about losing their hair. They feel it affects their whole being, their whole character. And I can see that it being just as offensive as calling somebody fatty.
But do you think it really needs to go through a tribunal?
No,
the same way that sexual harassment.
But how do you slap somebody down for saying you shouldn't be that unkind? You shouldn't be that rude. It's just plain rude.
But if he wins the case, it's going to open a floodgate for an awful lot of bald men.
Well, isn't it just? Bald men are meant to be more attractive to women because it's a sign of higher testosterone levels, apparently.
Well, I mean, this is it. This is what you can argue, that there is a flip side to it. And now we as a nation need to be a little bit kinder to each other. But these kind of insults have always been around, and I don't know if we've just become more offended as the years have gone on.
I think that's it.
Shouldn't insults be punished?
Well, not when it's like that.
Punish them
Balding.
by ignoring them.
I don't know. I think it can be very, very offensive.
Then you've got to think of every single word that comes out of your mouth then. If you're a stand-up comic, or if you're a broadcaster, or we're here. I interviewed the Chief Constable yesterday, and I went, about manpower, can I pull you up on that? She said to me, oh yes. She said to me, so if you're listening, Sarah, I've got to tell them. She pulled me up on it, she went, manpower? Sorry, you can't say that anymore.
What is it? Person power?
Oh, I don't know, but it's not manpower, because the Chief Constable is a lady. A lovely lady, by the way, she's a mate, but she pulled me up on it.
You see, that's nonsense, I think.
I think it's just taking it a little bit too far. And yeah, I mean, I agree that these things are hurtful, but treat them with the disdain they deserve and don't give them the space and move on with your life.
Yeah, Pete, to The Guardian. You had this at the top of your list. I've had to move it down because it's, we couldn't start with, but Eurovision, it's going to be a night.
It's going to be a night and a half. I mean, it's going high camp, but I mean, there's no point in having it because Ukraine's going to win. They've got to win. End of story. If it was the worst song in the world, they've got to win because it's the world saying we're behind Ukraine.
But that annoys me.
It does, but that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. But this guy, I mean, I loved Dana, 1970, all kinds of everything. And then there was Clodagh Rogers in 71, You're Just a Jack in the Box. I love that. They were two great songs. Now we've got this outrageous guy who is
Sam Ryder.
Yes, and he's got Spaceman.
And he's a TikTok star.
He is indeed, but he's been out busking all over Europe apparently, singing the song on street corners, building up.
So maybe that's the way to get a few.
The way to get, yeah, but I mean, he'll come second. I hope he comes second. But it's all political. This is political. And he looks outrageous. I just love it. But I will not be watching it.
I think.
I thought you'd been there.
No, we lost it when we lost Teddy Wogan. I just I listened to him. Some of the song. What's this song about a crocodile? Sorry, a wolf who eats
bananas. Yeah. That's Norway. That's Norway's entry, apparently.
It is, and I love it.
Unbelievable.
I really do, and I think this is the whole point of Eurovision, is that you have to watch it for those ridiculous moments of people dressed up as bananas, singing in different languages, glitter and drama, because everything else in life at the moment has been pretty miserable. And one evening of Eurovision, my son and I are going to sit down and watch it. My husband will be working, so he can just sort of look on from the other room.
It really.
Secretly.
Stephen, we've only just met and she just told me that her son said, we're watching that tonight. There's a young guy doing it. Yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah, and especially if we've got a chance of winning for the first time in eons.
Second. We won't win.
Second.
No,
Okay.
You can lay money on that.
Yeah.
Can't lay money on the FA Cup, but you can lay money on that.
Yes, it was second will do, frankly. Look, Pete, Claire, thank you both. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on for a bit more campery, Pete.
Pardon? I don't know what he's talking about.
Can't imagine. Let's bring you up to date with the headlines.
Well, as we've been